The morning sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of St. Mary's Hospital, yet inside the waiting lounge the air was thick with despair. Amid weary faces and hurried footsteps, one trembling, broken voice rose above the rest. A young mother, her clothes torn at the seams and a small teddy bear hanging from her arm, clutched her sick child tightly against her chest. Her knees gave way as she collapsed near the reception counter, crying out, "Please, someone, please save my daughter." It wasn't merely a plea for help. It was the cry of a soul breaking beneath unbearable helplessness. People turned to look, some with pity, others with indifference, yet no one moved to help. To most, she was invisible, just another struggling soul in a world too busy to care. But that day, fate placed in that hallway a man who wasn't supposed to be there. A man of wealth, power, and influence. Someone whose decisions could shift markets and build empires. His name was Ethan Reed, one of the richest men in the nation. What he witnessed that morning would alter his life forever. If you believe in compassion, kindness, and second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales Stories. Comment below and tell us why stories of hope inspire you. Ethan had come to the hospital only for a brief board meeting about a new medical wing his foundation was funding. He had no intention of stopping in the waiting area. His life revolved around schedules of luxury cars, private jets, and appointments that waited for no one. But as he passed the counter, he stopped abruptly. His sharp gaze fell on the woman kneeling on the cold floor, holding a fragile little girl whose cheeks were pale and whose tiny chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. The mother's name was Grace Miller. Life had not treated Grace kindly. Once a bright student with dreams of becoming a teacher, she had been abandoned by her partner when their baby girl, Lily, was only a few months old. Since then, Grace had worked 3 cleaning jobs, often skipping meals so her daughter could eat. Poverty clung to her, not only in her tattered jacket and worn shoes, but in her slumped, weary shoulders. Yet her eyes told another story. They burned with fierce love, the kind only a mother fighting for her child could possess. For weeks, Lily had been sick. A fever that refused to break, weakness that left her unable to stand, and a cough growing worse each day. Doctors confirmed she needed urgent, expensive treatment. Without it, her chances were slim. Grace had pleaded with charities, knocked on doors, but received nothing more than sympathetic smiles and whispered regrets. And now, at the hospital desk, she heard those same words again. "We can't start the treatment without the payment." Her cries echoed through the sterile corridor. "Please, she's just a child. Take me instead if you must, but don't let her die. I'll do anything." Her voice cracked as Lily whimpered faintly in her arms. Something stirred deep within Ethan, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself to feel for years. His empire was built on firm deals, sharp negotiations, and the belief that everyone controlled their own fate. But as he watched Grace and her fragile daughter, he saw a truth he had long ignored. Sometimes people don't fail from weakness, but because life crushes them beneath unbearable burdens. He could have walked away. He could have convinced himself it wasn't his concern, but instead his feet carried him toward her. When Grace lifted her tear-streaked face and her desperate eyes met his, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a human being who might still have a heart. Ethan spoke quietly to the nurse. Moments later, the resistance vanished. "Prepare the child for immediate treatment. All expenses will be charged to my account," he said firmly. The nurse, stunned, nodded and hurried off. Grace gasped, clutching Lily closer, afraid the promise might disappear. "Why?" she whispered through tears. "Why would you do this for us?" Ethan didn't respond right away. His eyes fell upon Lily's tiny hand gripping the teddy bear, a symbol of innocence she held onto even in sickness. Finally, he said softly, "Because no child should suffer for what the world failed to give." and no mother should have to beg for mercy that should already be hers. Hours later, Lily was admitted, and doctors began the life-saving procedure. Grace waited outside the room, trembling between hope and fear. Ethan stayed too, his expensive suit and polished shoes seeming out of place among the old plastic chairs. He sat quietly beside her, his presence a strange comfort. Memories haunted him as he waited. Long ago, he had grown up poor. His own mother had endured countless hungry nights just to keep him alive. He had buried those memories under layers of wealth and success, refusing to feel that pain again. But Grace's desperate voice had broken down those walls, reminding him of where he came from and the love of a mother who had given everything. Hours later, doctors returned with news. Lily's condition had stabilized. The treatment was working. Relief flooded Grace's face as she collapsed into tears, this time of gratitude. She turned to Ethan, her voice trembling with emotion, but no words came strong enough to thank him. Yet Ethan wasn't finished. He learned about her struggles, how she juggled jobs, how rent devoured her meager income, how each day was a fight to give her child a chance. His heart, hardened by years of business wars, softened in the face of her resilience. Quietly, he made a choice. He arranged steady financial support for Grace, not as charity, but as a job within his foundation. He offered her flexible hours, enough to care for Lily without losing her strength. He also created an education trust fund for Lily, ensuring poverty would never steal her opportunities again. Grace, overwhelmed, shook her head in disbelief. "You don't even know us. Why go this far?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because once someone gave my mother and me a chance, and it changed everything. I think it's time I return that gift." The story of Ethan Reed and Grace Miller spread quietly at first, whispered by hospital staff, then shared by those who had witnessed it. In a world clouded by greed and indifference, one act of kindness sparked hope. A billionaire, once untouchable, had chosen to kneel down and lift a fallen soul. That single decision not only saved a little girl's life, but also rewrote the destiny of an entire family. As the sun set that evening, Grace held Lily close. Her daughter's breathing was stronger now, her color returning. For the first time in years, Grace felt what she thought was gone forever: safety, hope, and the belief that miracles still exist. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales Stories. These stories remind us that compassion is far greater than wealth, and one simple act of kindness can change lives forever.